Well, guys, this is episode 7 of the Football Truth podcast. I'm happy and privileged to have Dr. Leland Stillman on. He's someone that I've been learning from for a long time, ever since I got into quantum health and quantum biology and understanding how the mitochondria works. And I think I've listened to almost every one of his podcasts, and he's definitely a huge influence in my work. I'm working with soccer players, footballers around the world, and it's someone that I'm really happy to have on because it's someone in the industry that actually, works from a perspective that you want to treat the root cause of health as opposed to symptoms, and really give people long lasting solutions. Welcome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So just for everyone who doesn't know, please give us just a background on you and your influences and your philosophies.
Yeah. So my influences, I started out, I grew up in a family where we used a lot of conventional, regular doctor type medicine. Plus we, went to the naturopath and the herbalist we went to a lot of really wacky, kooky people, and it gave me an interest in medicine and wellness. And like most American kids, I was growing up in an environment and with a lifestyle that was really unhealthy, right? And so I needed to learn pretty much how to fix myself, which is what a lot of people in this space. First of all, it's why a lot of influencers get into, and experts and whatever you want to call them, get into it, and then it's what drives a lot of people into these podcasts and shows, right? And then I grew up, went to medical school because it was where my naturopath mentor at the time told me to go. Studied internal medicine, which is the harder, more academically rigorous specialty within, I guess you could say, medicine in general. It attracts the geekiest, the people who really want to dig down and learn the most complex nitty-gritty detail. And then I got out of my medical training, which I hated because it was so dumb. And I've gotten less soft on that score in the last couple of years, because really the way modern medicine is operating is just so colossally stupid. It's so stupid that we're pouring more and more money into it every single year, and yet our outcomes are getting worse and worse and worse, and life expectancy is actually declining. Can you imagine how mad people would be if tomorrow their iPhone was more expensive and it worked worse, right? And yet people are settling for this nonsense. So I got out of training determined to find something better in a world where so much money is being made off of sickness that it's really getting hard to operate a business that tries to create wellness in a really, authentic way with high integrity. And traveled all over the country, moved all over the country for different training opportunities, invested in different mentors, invested in a lot of different education. And so, now what I do in my practice is I integrate the best of all possible worlds, the herbs from herbalism, and the Chinese medicine concepts from Chinese medicine, and the conventional medical stuff that I learned in my conventional training, and the nutrition and the diet and the lifestyle, and then all, of course, the quantum stuff, which is the light, the water, the magnetism, sound, the bioenergetics, all these other things that determine whether or not people are healthy or get sick. And then, of course, if they perform at a high level as an athlete, and of course, I work with a lot of athletes and a lot of former athletes who are, kind of upset that as they age, they can't perform the way that they used to when they were younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything you're saying is just so on point, and it's a fantastic to have you speaking to athletes directly, because it's even when, like, going from amateur even to the highest levels of professional sports, there's the same problems, and
that's right,
and they're all doing the same wrong things, I guess we'll say, in terms of, we have professional athletes making millions of dollars, some per month. They are streaming video games online on Twitch until like 3 a.m. And so,
yeah, right.
Could you basically educate our viewers on why those kind of habits are not the best choice?
We need to start with actually unpacking why people buy into the lie that they are achieving their peak performance because they're doing everything that they and their peers are used to doing,
That's right.
which
Yeah.
is a lie, right? You take these kids who have all grown up playing the same video games, having the same sleep schedule, eating the same foods, doing the same things, going to the same places, having the same hobbies. They have the same outcomes. So you can be the best of the mediocre and be a professional athlete. And
Yeah.
if you're a professional athlete and you're hearing that and that feels like a smack in the face, I want it to feel like that, because you have no idea what's possible if you will actually commit to vitality. And that's something that I've really gotten hard on patients with in the last couple of years, because I've had so many people come through who say, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to resolve this problem and I want to resolve that problem. And I'm like, great, awesome, let's get you started, right?
Mhm.
And I've had 4 or 5 people just in the last few months who bought, 4 or 5 figure wellness programs with me, expensive programs, significant investments, at least for some people, not for professional athletes, of course. Um, and flake on me, take weeks to get started, not get started for months, not get started at all. They
Yeah. Yeah.
come back and they're like, can I do my tests now? I'm like, your testing kit's gone bad, right? What were you so busy doing? And what they're busy doing is just the distractions of life. And it's sad because what they're doing is they're settling for driving a Ferrari like it's a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
They're settling for this mediocrity. And in 2 or 3 hours a day, if you really commit to it, you can make unbelievable gains. If you make just small hacks, small changes, small adjustments, you can really achieve, higher performance. And so, I really think it's incumbent upon, and I don't know if I assume your viewership is mostly men, but I could be wrong. It's
Yeah.
really incumbent upon men to challenge themselves and actually do experiments, right? Do they feel and perform better when they make this or that lifestyle change? Do they feel
Mhm.
and perform better when they, make this or that dietary change? That's what I do with patients. We track their data and we iterate it. And I do this in my new program called Optimal Male Vitality, where I really walk men through how to go from wherever they are, whether no matter how sick that is, to optimal vitality, as much vitality as it's possible for them to achieve. And to go back to this idea of optimal vitality not being simply the absence of, and I tell them it's not the absence of symptoms. The absence of symptoms is not the presence of health,
Mhm.
right? um, Optimal vitality is being as far from disease as possible. And that's not the same as being able to show up on a pitch as a professional athlete and crush it and do really, really well. Optimal vitality is being able to show up as your absolute best self, achieving your highest potential and performing it, absolutely what's most capable or possible given your genetics, your environment, your history. So, and in that program, we were really focused on getting them as far away from disease and as far towards that optimal performance as possible. And the tracking and the iterating is critical to that. We're tracking people with Oura Ring data. We're tracking them with labs. We're tracking them with whatever metrics they care about, whether it's how fast they run, how much they can lift, what kind of lift they can do, how long they can hold their breath, all these different things. And when you actually begin to play with the parameters the way that we do, it's unbelievable what you see happen. I mean, we had a female patient tell me the other day she's lost 11 inches in like 8 weeks. We have
Mhm.
moms who are going from like, and these are not obviously not optimal male vitality, they're just regular patients in my practice, but going from like energy levels of 3 to 6. I had a man who was wasting away this summer, well, really last fall or last spring, I should say. He was wasting away. He was 150 pounds and 6'3".
Wow.
At 6'3", you should be at least 170, at least 180, and then even then you're very lean. I took him from 150 to 170 in 6 months. And, and I didn't even need to use something like testosterone therapy, which can be really powerful for that. And so people are just wandering around in ignorance of all the really powerful tools that they can use to gain the edge over other people. And people are starting to wake up to this. My friend, well, I mean, he's going to remain nameless, but a friend of mine um, is starting to work with NFL teams because of the success that he and his colleagues have had improving their performance with principles like this,
Mhm.
right? And of course, with the professional athletes, it's you find something good, you share it with maybe your closest friends, but if you're not careful, they're going to get traded to your worst enemies tomorrow, and it's just going to hurt
Yeah.
your career, right? So you don't want to tell everybody. So this all is coming. People are listening to this and wondering how the other guys are getting up and doing what they're doing, and then this is part of it, right? The other
Um,
part being aging is inexorable. it wastes your ability to get away with stuff. Guys like Tom Brady don't get to where they are, or Nolan Ryan, or any of the greats who really played a long time. They don't get to where they are, and they don't have long careers. And by being stupid and abusing their bodies, they get there by, really taking care of themselves and living carefully and living strictly.
Yeah, I often say that like almost every injury is caused by your choices nowadays, because it's so common in the sports world to kind of say, oh, injuries are bad luck. Well, I'm saying,
No
well,
way.
no, they're not. There's a
No
reason
way.
that there's a reason that like you broke down, right? There's a reason
Yeah.
why you were running by yourself, no one around you, and your hamstring got tight or your knee like
Right.
buckled in. Like there's a reason.
Yeah.
There's always a reason.
Absolutely. There's no way that all of this is just chance. I mean, sure, you can chalk up some things to chance. I'm not saying people don't get hit by buses, struck by lightning,
Yeah.
whatever. But the idea that people are not in control of their likelihood to be injured is just nonsense. I just looked at some labs with somebody this morning before our call, and all of this person's plasma amino acids were at the low end of normal. Okay.
Mhm.
Including the ones necessary for the production of collagen, the main connective tissue of the body. It's involved in the architecture and the construction and the integrity of all of your vital organs, all of your joints, all your joint capsules, all of your tendons, all of your ligaments, all of your muscles. Something like 80% of your body's dry weight is collagen, right? And her levels are low, right? So
Yeah.
what am I telling her? I'm like, well, first of all, I'm asking her, like, what happened? Like, what was going on in the 2 weeks before this lab draw? Stress, extending themselves too thin. Because this is not the first time I've had this conversation, believe me, because I really tend to only work with high achievers, um, who are all spreading themselves too thin. It's like 90% of what I do is just get them to dial back.
Yeah.
Um, not eating enough protein, not eating enough lean protein. People will get satiated on high fat foods and not realize that their protein intake is actually low.
Mhm.
Or they'll use carbs and fats in order to satiate themselves and fuel their energy, and they'll actually be at like a very low protein intake for the day. So plasma amino acids are low, collagen amino acids are low, and so what is that a setup for as an athlete? It's a setup for an injury. And as an
Yeah.
athlete, if you're constantly tearing your body down just with regular workouts, not with anything crazy like these nut jobs who do CrossFit. Love you, CrossFitters. You're so broken because you're over exercise addicts. Um,
Basically.
yeah, they make terrible, terrible patients, but very enthusiastic ones, I gotta say. So anyway, collagen peptides are low, set up for injury. That's just one marker. Collagen ends up getting transformed into or really completed by things like copper, things like vitamin C. And so when you have low levels of those, it cascades into these other things. Copper is also necessary for energy production, right? So
Mhm.
somebody with, and people just think that their nutrition is normal because they hit the macros that they set for themselves, or because they eat
Yeah.
enough calories, or because they're not hungry. It's a really amazing, and that's the things. It's amazing what you can do when you actually understand what the levels are. Another person I'm working with right now, just they texted me the other night and they said, I supplemented with the minerals you told me to supplement with, and it boosted my HRV immediately. This is somebody who's constantly under stress. Their HRV is low, right? I mean, how many high achievers have I taken like their mag or their potassium or, copper, zinc, whatever levels up, and that suddenly their HRV jumps, right? Because their body can actually, regulate its nervous system properly because they've got the right mineral density and inputs that are responsible for neurotransmission and for energy production inside these neurons. So there's a lot that athletes are leaving on the table as far as performance.
Yeah. I've always found it so fascinating when I have guys come to me and they're getting paid 100K a week, 100 like 100 and 140 a week, and yet they don't
Yeah.
want to spend $1,000 on what could give them 5, 10 more years on their career.
No, I know.
You know?
I know. And but you gotta knock people out of that,
Yeah.
because what they're doing is they're saying I'm not worth it.
Oh yeah,
They're
exactly.
saying I can make it without making a reinvestment in myself. And it's hilarious because when you really think about it, you can't walk away from your physical body. You can't divorce it. You can't abandon it. You can't declare bankruptcy on it, start over like you can with wives, companies. Can't, you can't you can walk away from everything else in your life, but your body and your physical health. And these people who are spending, $50,000 on a entry level luxury vehicle, not the Lambo or the
Entry level,
McLaren
yeah.
or the Ferrari, right? They're like, wow, it's expensive to work with you. And I'm like, you can't even buy a new Honda Civic for what it costs to work with me. And you want it to be cheaper,
That's right.
you know? And I don't blame people. It's especially right now, things are tough for a lot of people, not maybe for professional athletes, um, but that's why I have a team of people who I work with. And then I work with the people who are really ready to rock and roll and get after it and really achieve high outcomes. Because the other thing I've found about them is that you have to be available to them when they're free, and um, you have to have the energy and the wherewithal to really hold them accountable and say, hey, listen, you got to stop overworking yourself, or you got to just change your workout slightly and you'll do fine.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're gonna, they're not gonna get the value out of it. And it's key. It's key to be putting, frankly, like more money into your health than you're putting into your car, than you're putting into your house, if you want to really achieve what's possible in your professional and personal life. And it's really fun. People get that, and when they rock and roll and they
Are there, doctor?
yeah, you hear me? I like that. I think.
Still lagging a little bit.
Can you hear me?
I think you're back.
Good.
Yeah, so you were saying how um well, I've seen basically there's a big conundrum in the sports world where people don't understand that a lot of top athletes, they succeed despite what they do, not because of what they do. And that's kind of what you're honing in on, where people see these pictures of these pro athletes, doing X, Y, or Z, and then they copy that. They copy that training or that lifestyle or those different, like choices around diet and even just, obviously things like playing video games. And then they think, well, those guys do it, why can't I? And then yeah, go ahead.
No, that's exactly right. And the real question is, what could they be achieving if they weren't doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And why do they feel driven to burn the candle at both ends? Because what really is going on with a lot of high performers, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about elite level soldiers, special forces operators, or CEOs, or doctors, or I mean any level of high achievers, professionals, whatever. A lot of them come from backgrounds and homes where they didn't have a healthy emotional environment growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and they're basically destroying themselves in many different ways, because self-destruction is part of what the normal is for them,
That's right.
and self-love is not actually deeply ingrained in them as programming. And that's another reason why people will flake on wellness programs with me, is that they're really struggling with how they feel about themselves and their emotions, and getting them to really come to terms with, how is actually getting healthy going to make you feel about yourself. It's actually a pretty powerful thing. Um, and I just see it all the time in serious athletes, even if they're not pro, right? The
Mm-hmm.
people who are hitting the CrossFit gym 2 or 3 times a day, they're running from something, they're hiding from something, they're suppressing their emotions by really overworking out. Um, Addressing all that is part of the secret sauce, because once you can only really get someone to an optimal place when they're willing to confront those things. And some people don't have so much of those hangups as other people, but you got to be willing to tackle that, when it's part of the problem. Otherwise, you'll make no progress.
Yeah, I mean, I've found that out myself firsthand. If you don't, if you don't believe that you're deserving of like optimal health, oftentimes your body will self-sabotage and you'll have these mysterious stress fractures. And I had that the multiple times where it's like
Yep.
if you don't actually believe that you deserve to be healthy and to be successful as an athlete, then your body's going to do things to keep you away
Sabotage your
from that, right?
success. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful. And I think a lot of men don't want to confront it because it makes them think about their feelings. And we're not, intrinsically, we're very wary and cagey about our feelings. And people will say, well, that's just because men are, this way or men are that way. I think it's more of a defense mechanism. If you let somebody into your heart as a man, they're in a position to really destroy you, right? That's why
Mhm.
historically, if you look at all the examples of men who've fallen from great heights, there's always a woman in the picture, right? Samson and Delilah, Paris, and uh, what's the name of that? The girl from the Trojan Wars, the Odyssey, or the Iliad.
Oh,
You get the idea, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it's the same thing with mentors. It's the same thing with coaches. It's the same thing. I mean, you get the wrong coach, they'll take a great player and turn them into a disaster, right? Because of the
Yeah.
power they can exert over that player's mind. Um, and it's scary. It's scary to think that everything you've worked for, everything you've tried to achieve, everything you've really sacrificed so much for is actually at the whims largely of what's going on in your brain. And what's going on in your brain is about who you allow into your life and into your circle. Um, and it's that's half the battle in a lot of cases. So, and I love to helping men identify who their real toxic relationships are, because sometimes people just haven't actually asked them the hard questions like who makes you uncomfortable, right? Who makes you feel afraid or unworthy or unhappy, or who are you anxious about talking to next? And they'll tell you
Mhm.
right away. Well, my wife, my girlfriend, my mother, my sister, my father, my brother, my coach, my this, my that. And you got to figure out why. Because a lot of times it's not actually a healthy relationship that they have going on. Now, I tie that all back into the labs and what I do with men as far as optimization with quantum stuff in that you'll never have normal, healthy emotions if your nutrition is not right.
Mhm.
I've had people come alive emotionally and psychologically when we fix the biochemical terrain underlying their brain. And one of the things I've found in people is that when you start to nourish them properly and get those, I think a lot of, and one of the things you see actually with people who are victims of narcissistic abuse is that they actually lose their memory.
Mhm.
Um, am I coming through okay? Because it says the connection's unstable.
That on the audio was fine. It was just the picture for the on the picture for a little bit was a little bit stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Figured-
Yeah, what I was saying is narcissists will basically induce memory loss in their victims.
Mhm.
Um, and they'll do it with crazy making behavior and the amount of stress they put those people under. And so what's happening there is the stress is in many cases, in many ways, inducing a loss of nutrients. And that loss of nutrients then shows up in their lab work. And so you can
Mhm.
turn those memories back on and you can affect how the brain is working and functioning by changing those nutrient levels. And that can be part of and is part of really the healing journey towards getting people out of these toxic relationships and into the right relationships for them. Are part ultimately of their optimal performance.
Can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just moving my computer because the reception is so atrocious here.
No worries.
But hopefully you'll have a better connection from me now.
Yeah, like we can edit it out. It's all right.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. You know.
Awesome. Yeah, but so you're saying when someone comes to you for help, the first thing you do is food, or do you also make sure that they're making changes in their lifestyle as far as like their light environment and everything like that?
The first thing I have to do is actually figure out if their mindset is in the right place.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are coming to me with the attitude of, I have a broken axle on my truck. I need you to fix it. Or I
Mhm.
have a flat tire. Or the sink is clogged. And I am not a plumber and I'm not a mechanic. I am here to make the car run amazingly well. I am not interested in unclogging leaky whatever, or clogged whatever. I'm not interested in these small jobs. I want to do the equivalent of a medical home renovation.
Yeah.
I want to take a dump or a, disheveled but nice, whatever state of repair it's in, and I want to turn it into something amazing. That's how I like to work. And I've been really fortunate in the number of people who've come to me in the last couple of years for help, to basically have a small group of patients who I take care of on an ongoing basis. And then everyone else who I work with, we're focused on really that optimization. And I've hired a team of people to do the like basic stuff, acute care. I've got a cold, I've got a flu, I've got a hangnail, I've got a headache, I've got whatever.
Yeah.
So I can really help everybody in my practice, no matter what their age, gender, race, budget, location. But I want to work with the guys who are the most, and specifically, I'm only working with men right now in the Optimal Male Vitality Program. And the idea is really, you're not just interested in fixing your knee pain. You're not just interested in fixing your hip pain. You're interested in achieving what's the highest level of well-being and performance that's possible for you. And that's actually a really different mindset than most men have. Most men are like, hey, I want to improve my golf swing. Hey, I want to improve my this. And I'm like, yeah, but really what you mean is you want to be the best golfer you can possibly be. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, are you willing to give up this, that, and the other thing in order to get there? And that is the thing that you'll find separates the men from the boys. The guys who really don't have what it takes and really aren't determined and really don't have real chutzpah, cojones, guts, balls, whatever you want to call it. And the guys who are like, yeah, absolutely. Let's rock and roll. Let's find out what's possible. And so the first thing I do is I evaluate their mindset, and I have a really serious conversation with them about, what are you really here to do? Are you here to be mediocre, or are you here to be exceptional? Because I don't have to work with the people who are willing to be mediocre. And I feel very blessed to be able to pass on those cases and have my staff see them. And I feel really lucky to be able to attract and work with men who are really focused on that next level, and really not settling for, the mediocrity that frankly most men are settling for, in large part out of ignorance and out of the really toxic marketing narratives that they're inundated with. I mean, men are so misinformed today.
Oh yeah.
It's incredible. And it's no surprise then that the average testosterone that I see coming into my practice is something like 500 in men who are 30, 40, 50. It should be 6, 7, at least 8, 9, 10, 12, right? Would be more ideal. But men are just being poisoned by our modern world, our modern culture, our modern lifestyles. And they, a lot of them are just taking it lying down.
Yeah, that's kind of the big challenge that almost
Yeah,
goes unseen nowadays, where you don't realize that there's a test, and a lot of guys don't stand up and don't
I know.
acknowledge that they're losing, right?
That's right.
Like,
And they're settling,
and they're falling
right?
behind in the race, right? Um,
And they make excuses. And they're like, well, my girlfriend just doesn't like me because she doesn't understand, or, she's just difficult to deal with because, I'm too tired at home from work to do whatever, or, well, I just, man, I just need those 2 beers at the end of the day to kick back and relax. And, I sympathize, because when you don't see the rules of the game, when you
mm,
don't understand those rules, it's very confusing, right? And that's my job, understand the rules of the game. And it really is, to take it back to the mindset and the mentality men have about, not spending the money on their wellness and their well-being and their performance. First of all, because most doctors have no earthly idea how to do that. I mean, they have no interest, they have no inclination, and they absolutely don't know how to get results.
mm,
But the second piece of it is that when you say to these men, you're like, hey, wait a minute. I want you to think about what you paid your lawyer to draft your business operating agreement, contract, whatever. Think about what you paid your agent. Think about what you paid your personal trainer. Think about what you paid your whoever, right?
mm.
And they'll think, yeah, I mean, tens of thousands of dollars, or $100,000 for some big, deal, or big opportunity, right? Depending on what if they're a business owner, if they're an entrepreneur, if they're a highly paid professional. And then they want to, just pay their insurance bill and their copay for their healthcare. It's a broken mindset. It's a really broken mindset, but I understand it because it's again, men have just been indoctrinated into it by the medical system. That's made it so hard to run a business that's built around wellness, because of
Yeah.
the limitations on our speech that have been imposed and the limitations on our freedom of action that have been imposed by the government.
Yeah, nowadays it's almost paramount that you kind of speak in code, and you only only certain things can be discussed on certain platforms, and then once people join and come into a private domain, then you can really have the full blueprint on the table and
Right.
allow people to use
Right.
all the tools at their disposal if they knew about it, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, it's a ongoing challenge because, like you're saying, people have like problems, which is the symptom, and the symptom is what gets them up out of their chair to act. Because
Right. The pain.
yeah, the pain teacher, Paul Check always says,
Yep.
when the pain teacher is the guy that actually makes you change because you're tired, or eventually like you're tired and like you're sick of the pain, but the actual
Right.
problem itself, like you're saying, is the root cause, and that's what people don't understand, and they need to come to you to basically figure it out.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And figure out how to use every single possible point of leverage to get
Yeah.
themselves better. And I don't deal with a lot of the things that men are gravitating towards: stem cells, ozone, high dose IV therapies. I know about them and I direct men how to use them. But the reason that I don't do that, because believe me, if I thought the solution to men's modern problems was another stem cell clinic, another
Yeah.
ozone clinic, another ketamine clinic, I would just do that. It's actually a lot easier to do that than what I do, because I have to get men out of their own way. And people are happy to show up, get an IV, have an infusion, get an injection. And it's funny, to go back to that, right? Or the way that men think about their health, right? They're thinking, okay, $5,000 for stem cells is worth it because it's stem cells. But $10,000 for concierge medical care, why do I need that? You need that because you need the direction, because you may waste the money on the stem cells. I can't tell you how many men I've taken care of where they're like, yeah, I took stem cells, 6 months of benefit.
Yeah.
Then after that, it was back to the old thing, right? It's like, well, you know, you really didn't address the root cause of the problem, the underlying problems that were creating that problem. And so, of course, you got mediocre results. You tried to put on an addition to a house that had a foundation problem, right? We need to assess the foundation. We need to assess the walls. We need to assess the roof. We need to assess all of it before we make some big decision about investing money in this something like that, right? And yeah, it's a broken mindset that a lot of men have about their health and their well-being and their performance, and that's why they're not getting superior results and they're not really excelling. And then they just think it's their genetics, which is nonsense. It's not their genetics. It's 98% their choices.
Yeah. They blame external scapegoats
Yes.
that are
Yep.
what I call empty-handed, where there's no one to blame. It's where it's like, oh, I'm just not a fast athlete. Like I'm not
Right.
strong. Like I'm not like a strong
Right.
guy. But like you could change those things if
I'm
you
not
want to.
fast enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not gifted enough. I don't have the muscle mass. I can't do this. I can't do that. Yeah. Washing somebody's brain of all that bad programming is as much a medicine as any, pill found on a drugstore shelf.
Yeah,
It's a better medicine, really.
oh yeah. I mean, it's the medicine that actually gets you results and gets you out of where you were stuck
Right.
in before. Because
Right.
like you're saying, even in professional sports, there's thousands of different kind of of different like gadgets and recovery tools that clubs spend insane amounts of money on, and
Right.
yet they can't do the very basics, and they want this external, like a pill, basically, as a metaphor. They want that pill that will allow them to get these results, but without changing what they were doing in the first place. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah, it's just asinine, to be fair.
It's asinine. Yeah. And there's a better way.
Yeah, I've always I've always said, if you want change, then you have to change. You can't expect some kind of injection just that's going to fix everything for you.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, you have to focus on what's best for you,
Hmm.
in the sense of what your purpose in life is. Because the other thing I think that men get really unhooked from their purpose. I think any professional athlete, certainly their purpose is to be the best athlete they can be, right?
Yeah.
But they have a bigger purpose than that. They don't just want to be a good athlete because they want to be a good athlete. They want to be a good athlete because they love it, because they love the fans, because they love their family, and they want to be a good dad, and they want to be a good
Hmm.
husband. I mean, if you turn out to be a professional athlete who's earned lots and lots and lots of money and has lots and lots of fame and accolades and whatever, but you feel empty inside because you don't have a fulfilling family life, because you don't have really good genuine friendships that you love, or friends that you love, if you don't have some sense of community and belonging, like you've done something for the world, what does all that fame, what does all that accomplishment really mean for you? I see
Hmm.
that a lot in men too. They get unhooked from their real purpose, and they have to hook back into it in order to actually find that drive to really do what's necessary to achieve those higher levels of performance.
Hmm. Do you do you recommend that men avoid things like porn and masturbation? And what's your opinion on that world of stuff?
Yeah, so definitely the porn. Porn is really toxic for the brain. I'm convinced
Yeah.
anyway. I mean, video games too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think that when men are really hooked into their purpose, they've got time for their purpose, taking care of the people they love, and then resting, rejuvenating, regenerating their bodies.
Hmm.
And if you stray from those three things, you're really you're going to be undercutting one of them, right? So, how many men have I taken care of where the refrain was, everything is, I've got everything in my business. I did so well, whatever, but my son, he's such a failure. He's such a disappointment.
Mm.
Well, why do you think that is? You know, were you the parent he needed,
Yeah.
right? Did you husband your wife in such a way that he was the mom that he needed? She was the mom that he needed? Did you guide him in life into the right friendships, the right professional, whatever, without being overbearing as well, right? Which is really
Mm.
difficult. But when you step back and you really think about how little time men invest in becoming better men outside of their professional pursuits, it actually explains a lot of why their performance suffers. Like, does anyone think that it's a coincidence that the Buccaneers are doing terribly right now and Tom Brady's going through a divorce?
Yeah,
You know, that goes
exactly.
back to that whole, your performance is a lot about who you allow into your heart and into your life, more than what you put in your mouth, more than what your labs say, more than what you're doing on the pitch or the field or the weight room or whatever. Not to say that all those biochemical parameters don't matter, because I think most people who go into the mindset world, um, a lot of them fail not only because of the bad coaching that they get, because there's so many gurus out there on mindset who are mindset gurus because their mindset is such a disaster. I had a friend who used to say that the psychiatrists become psychiatrists because they all want to unscramble their own eggs. And the same
Yeah.
can be said of the counselors and the coaches and the whatever. Um, and it's part of why my practice is actually a little bit light on that, if anything. I mean, I've talked about it a lot today, but I really do try and stick with the numbers and the data, because the data doesn't lie, right? If your HRV sucks the day after you had, a day at your mother-in-law's house, that's a clue. That's a clue that your mother-in-law's a problem, right? Now, how we manage that problem is not a matter of supplements and drugs and herbs. It's a matter of those things, right? Plus, how are you going to do, and what are you going to do about it emotionally, psychologically, spiritually? So, yeah, I can't remember what question you asked me.
No, yeah, it was just about how like porn and like video games and
Yeah, that's right.
this kind of like it's like a
Such
virtual
toxic ways.
it's a virtual reality that they want to bring men and obviously boys before they're men, or boys, or almost to stop boys from becoming men by keeping them locked into this virtual reality where they're literally doing nothing. They're in a chair just pressing buttons on a screen, and
That's right.
people think it's okay because it's like fun. And like
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I think the answer is that these men and boys should challenge themselves. They should take cold look in the mirror. And they
mhm.
should say, all right, I'm going to track my data. I'm going to see what happens. And if you don't live a circadian life without all that toxic waste going into your brain via your eyeballs, um, and the masturbation thing I didn't answer. Um,
Mm.
I haven't seen sexual frequency or variety of intercourse dramatically impact men's performance or labs. But that's something that is so intimate that it's tough for me to even get or trust the data that I get on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
that's true. That's
And how
true.
detailed are we going to get here? Right. Um, I think it'd be really interesting to track and get some data on, um, but it's more about the emotional connections actually than it probably is anything if I had to guess.
Mhm.
But again, you go back to the data, you say, hey, look, your HRV sucked. Your heart rate's gone up. Your breathing rate's gone up. Your resting temperatures change. What's happening? What's going on? What was your workout yesterday? Are you doing your fundamentals?
Mhm.
Did you have any unpleasant interactions or altercations yesterday? Um, you've got to dial in all that stuff to figure out what's going on in the data. And then with the labs too, why is this, that, the other thing way off kilter now? What's changed? What are you doing differently? Um, and yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that that stuff is just, we're not designed for the consumption of pornography, of basically free, sex. Um,
Mhm.
it's turning into a very weird world where that's so normalized, um, and so unhinged from the traditional relationship dynamics that have really defined Western civilization and its success over
Mhm.
generations. And I think that the fact that things are getting worse in the West now than probably they've ever been, in some ways anyway, um, is just a testament to the fact that that things like pornography are not compatible with good health, let alone a healthy mindset and a healthy society.
Yeah, it takes away the kind of like the brilliance of nature and the challenge of
Mm,
life and having to like learn how to um overcome, I guess, some of these problems in a man's life. Okay, how do I get a job? How do I make money? Ah, how do I talk to women? Most guys are not very good at that nowadays because
no,
they're kind of locked into that virtual reality where things are done for them, and they can with one click they can get access to a million pictures or videos of this or that. Where
yep,
compared to like 100 years ago, maybe in your lifetime you would see 40, 50, 60 um women if you're lucky in terms of and them being naked. But nowadays, you can literally go
maybe,
and
right?
yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah, if you're lucky, I guess.
Maybe. I mean, not long ago in this country, like if you uncovered some woman's nakedness, it's a good chance her brother or husband or father or whatever would kill you,
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, and then nowadays, in one click, I'm gonna see millions for all day, for free as well,
That's right.
which is always interesting. Why how all those platforms have such good bandwidth, and there's no lagging. There's no they have all the best servers, and it's always online. Um,
Yep.
Shifting the conversation, there was a blog that I read of yours that had a great quote that I wanted to read. It was about food, and it was we are the only animal on the planet Earth that eats a non-local, non-seasonal diet, and it suffers from catastrophic levels of nutritional disease. This is
Yep.
so tragic. It's downright funny. Non-local,
That's right.
non-seasonal diets are one of the major causes of disease and suffering in our modern world.
Yeah.
And I've I found that so apt because it's almost if you just do less, you'll get more, right? If you try and like if you're eating bananas that have been flown in from Mexico and you live in
Yep.
Alaska, like how does that make sense, right?
Well, there's a lot of it's true, and I like to make that point. But what's funny about us humans, right, is that we're unlike animals in so many other ways, right? Scorpions don't decide to be scorpions, they are scorpions. Bears don't decide to be bears, they are bears. Lions don't decide to be lions, they are lions, right?
Mhm.
They manifest these things to different degrees, right? There's bigger and badder scorpions than other scorpions and lions and tigers and bears, right? And a man can choose to be an absolute, but we as a species can choose to be what we are, right? So a man can choose to be very masculine and very manly, and a man can choose to be an absolute pathetic putts.
Yeah.
And it is a choice. And so you can choose what you eat. Now we make all kinds of other weird choices, right? Like we choose to kill other animals, cut their skin off of them, flense the meat from the skin, and then make clothing out of it. That's pretty weird, right? That's about as weird, I would say, compared to what the other animals do in nature, right? As putting a banana on a plane, flying it to Alaska and eating it.
Yeah.
And but you have to have a respect for the influences of your environment on your biochemistry. And so when you lose that respect, you will create mistakes. You make mistakes and they'll create diseases. And so every environmental stress, every environmental input creates a stress, creates a demand within the body for nutrients, for other energies, right? And for things that are immaterial, psychological inputs, whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um, and for functions like sleep. Like why do you sleep better after a day at the beach? It takes energy out of you as much as it's putting energies back into you. The sound of the waves, the energy of the sunlight, the
Mhm.
electromagnetic field of the earth. Those are energies. They're entering your body, right? Being conducted throughout it. And they have healing properties. And yet they make you tired. It's sort of a paradox, right?
Yeah.
And so with non-local, non-seasonal diets, people are just made their diets so complicated and so weird and so all over the place. They're getting a lot of diseases because they don't have a basic respect for the fact that the nutrients that are growing around you right now are the ones that your body is naturally going to need more of in that season.
Mhm.
And that's why so many of my patients, their problems get better when we get them to expand what they're eating, particularly along local seasonal lines. What people will then get wrong about that is they'll think, okay, I live in northern Minnesota. I'm only going to eat meat and fish for the winter. Well, the native tribes stored wild rice, they stored legumes, they stored different types of grains, and they dried things like fruits. Um, and they endured the cold. I think that people forget that if you're going to eat a cold style diet, you should probably get cold sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And they also brought sweat lodge and sauna into everything that they did. So that we change our environment so much, we have to do it in a mindful way.
Mhm.
And it's a big piece of what I help people understand in working with them one-on-one is, okay, this is how you got to change your environment to really change the results that you're getting. Um, and that piece of it is so powerful. When you marry someone's environment to their diet, you get profound results because you're matching what the demands of the environment are with the inputs that they're getting nutritionally or dietarily. And that really helps people feel well.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really important piece is the brilliance of nature to like self-organize and to self-regulate in terms of the food being grown in this location at at this latitude at this time of year is there for a reason. And there's a reason why that
Yeah,
food isn't being grown somewhere else. So if you live in
right.
those different locations, the food growing there is made for you. So it's really the brilliance is just trust in nature and understand that maybe just be simple, go to the farmer's market, eat the food there, and not try to basically outsmart nature, which I see all the time, especially
Yeah,
in pro sports where they're like where they want every supplement and they want like a specific kind of foods, thinking that there's like a superfood from the Amazon that's going to fix something, where in reality they just don't have raw milk on where they're from, or they don't even get local animal products in their systems because they've been trained to think that that's not a reality, right?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the end, local food systems are the bedrock of a healthy, thriving society and
That's right.
civilization. You need the land to be, and it's funny because the technical word for it is husbanded, right? Which is it's a masculine trait to want to foster a natural world where there's an abundance of resources and there's a nice environment for everyone to enjoy. And people forget that that's what that word is really about.
Mm,
And those natural local food systems, there's something that you lose in food with every change, even if it's just a truck ride. And we can't quantify that in modern medicine well. anyway. And people will say, oh, well, there's this much folate that's lost, there's this much vitamin C that's lost when you freeze it, when you ship it, when you truck it, when you heat it, when you boil it, when you broil it, when you braise it. I mean, it's just all these different transmutations and transformations in food. But what's not quantified is important. And it sounds downright hokey. But what's funny, having worked with these principles in real cases with real patients, I'll tell you that without a doubt, there's this idea in traditional East Asian medicine, Japanese and Chinese particularly, although they will blend together over there, that you need to have the right energy of the food for the person. So people who are really strong and robust, they can handle more intense, more flavorful, more powerful foods. Those flavors are not just a coincidence. They are a really powerful influence on your system. And so, for example, the flavor of something like beef liver is really intense. I don't know anybody who wants to eat more than an ounce or two of beef liver every once in a while, right? And that's because it's loaded with copper, it's loaded with vitamin A, it's loaded with B vitamins, and you can overload your system with those things and create problems and disease. And that's the same actually for green juice drinks. Green juice drinks are loaded with potassium, loaded with magnesium, loaded with copper, and loaded with phytonutrients that have all these complex effects on organs like the liver and the kidneys and the brain and all the rest of your body. And so pushing that into somebody who's actually sick and frail can actually make them worse. And the traditional Chinese, traditional Asian way of viewing this is that you've got to have a appropriate level of energy in the food and resonance in the food with the person. That does change when you move it, and it's powerful clinically, because when you see that, you say, oh wow, this person can eat this, but they can't eat that. This person can eat this, but not that. And then you start using food instead of supplements, and you'll see some pretty profound effects from food that you can't get with supplements. And somebody who's not willing to change their diet, I will recommend that they work with someone who's not me. Because if you're not willing to change your diet, you're not willing to change the most fundamental things about your life to really achieve that optimal level of performance.
Yeah, it's a window into their real issues underneath.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So my kind of last topic to wrap things up is I wanted to hear, like, what's your view of the effects of non-native EMFs on things like fascia and muscle.
Yeah. Two really funny stories I just heard from people recently. One of them is my father. My father's got a very slow growing indolent cancer. He's 83 years old. He's living with it very successfully. But this diagnosis got him to really tune into what I was saying about the dangers of wireless radiation from cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he removed or got rid of the wireless signal from the wireless router at his feet at his desk. And without changing anything else, without any new medications or supplements or whatever, he's noticed the swelling in his right foot, which is in the tumors up above it, has gotten a lot better. Another person who I'm taking care of, she just told me about going to a co-working space where there's lots of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, everything's connected, right? And she said, I felt sick like I haven't felt sick in a long time. And that's a very common thing for me to hear from people when they unplug from this wireless reality that we're in.
Yeah.
And the effects of non-native EMF on athletes are very insidious. They're not recognizing them or seeing them, but they're absolutely there. And it's going to show up in their HRV data. It's going to show up in their sleep scores. This used to not be such a big problem because people had maybe a cell phone. And then after they had a cell phone, maybe they had a wireless laptop, right? But now it's a wireless laptop, it's a cell phone, it's a wireless charger, it's a smart washer, it's a smart dryer, it's a smart or dishwasher, it's a smart home, it's a smart ring system, it's a smart home security system. The amount of EMF that's coming into people's homes now is absolutely just bananas. And then the amount that they're exposed to out there in the world, right? Just walking down the street, going for a walk, going out to eat, they're being exposed to more and more and more of it. What people need to realize about water and the cell and energy is that your energy in a cell is produced by a complex relationship of things like water and minerals, not even to mention B vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, carbohydrates. When those hydrogen bonding networks in water as they're related to minerals, become disrupted, you radically alter how the cell functions, but not in a way that is, acutely compromising the patient. So doctors look at EMF and they're like, oh, like the patients aren't like dying right now after turning on
Yeah.
their cell phone. It must be safe. That's the
Yeah.
same mindset as, oh, the patient had a cigarette and they're fine, right?
Mhm.
But we're going through right now the equivalent of going from the occasional cigarette made with homegrown backyard tobacco and simple, you know, brown leaf wrappers or cigars, right? We're going from that to 5 packs a day in the last couple of generations with
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. And that's how I know society's going to wake up to and figure this out, short of such a massive censorship coup that truly free speech is totally snuffed out, which I hope doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But let's just say there's a lot of people who want it to happen. And it's really clear. I mean, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that this is just another big corporate um, propaganda game of our product is safe, our product is effective. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing to worry about. Those tinfoil hatted conspiracy theorists who are telling you that it impairs your function and hurts your health and contributes to cancers and autoimmune diseases and allergies and whatever, they're just kooks. Give me
Hmm.
a break. My patients who mitigate EMF, who eschew the, you know, snake oil that most doctors are slinging at them, who live out in the country and homestead and raise chickens and, homeschool their kids. Do you know how rarely those people call me?
Oh, never. Yeah, they're doing great.
It's like never. I'll tell them, hey, this is what it costs for me to take care of your kids. They're like, we never call you for our kids. Why would we pay you? Like I can't take care of more than 20 or 30 modern people who are high achievers living in a high EMF environment, doing all the things, having a business over here and another business over there and raising the kids and taking care of the husband or the wife or the whatever. I can't take care of more than 20 or 40 of those people because they keep me so busy. But I could take care of thousands of people living a traditional life, homeschooling their kids outside in nature, in a natural way, in the same amount of time. And that's why the healthcare system is collapsing and why I think the best investment right now for anyone, because currencies are going to change in terms of their value,
Yeah.
assets are going to change in terms of their value, um, salaries are not going to be able to buy what they're able to buy, tomorrow, what they are today. But if you're not putting your money into your health, into your physical vessel, which you cannot divorce, um, you're just making a huge mistake because the way that forces are coming together to really destroy people's health is amazing. Number of people who are going to be bankrupt because of the health problems they've developed over the last couple of years because of the really misguided government policies and sometimes downright evil corporate malfeasance is staggering and sobering and tragic. But it's the pain that the world is going to need, unfortunately, to wake up from the stupor of really falling for the scam that is modern pharmaceutical medicine.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, pe- people don't wake up until things get too real. It's
Some people will not wake up, and
it's very true. Yeah.
that's why traditional societies all recognize the appropriateness of the death penalty.
Yeah. I mean, if they're just not cut out for this, way of living, or if they're not ready to, I guess, do things that do things in the way that nature would intend, and they want to go opposite, then there's only one kind of solution to that.
Yeah, you can't deny reality. It will catch up to you,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that happen in just droves.
Yeah. I think just to wrap up the point on the EMFs in pro sports, just how abundant the AirPods and the Bluetooth heart rate monitors that they wear while they play. It's everywhere, and
I know.
they really force it on the athletes, and
Wow, that's
and
sad.
well, yeah, it's sad, but honestly, as an athlete, those numbers like don't mean anything. They're really stupid, and some of the coaches that are like older coaches, they kind of realized that like even if the guy with the best stats on the computer, he's not my best player. So they kind of they kind of follow suit with these like sports science types that like want the data,
Yeah.
but it's it's an ongoing issue, and I think it'll get worse as far as concussions and other like mental health issues
Yeah.
with
Absolutely.
some pro
Yeah.
athletes that is becoming more common by the month.
Yeah. Right. Not to mention brain cancers, heart
Yeah,
attacks.
even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I use the Aura Ring, but it's in airplane mode, and I check the data every day. And Jim, my strength coach and I will use this data to really help people dial in. And we
Mhm.
find it invaluable because particularly the overachievers and the overworkers their data will not lie. It will betray them to us. And we need it to do that because they'll lie. I love them, but they'll lie.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that they're lying, but to them, normal is working too hard. And so for them, like vacation is weird. It's uncomfortable. And I have to admit, like I am also a recovering workaholic.
Mhm.
I didn't get to where I am by not, overworking, but my Oura Ring holds me accountable. Um, and my labs hold me accountable. They wake me up to the fact that sometimes I'm doing things that are too much for me.
Mhm.
That I need to scale back. I need to relax. I need to build in time for me. I need to stop, taking care of so many people, or I need to stop, keeping so many hours. And a lot of people need to hear that because in this world, there's so much noise coming at people to overwhelm them through the digital space that it's very easy for them to get sucked in, addicted, and then used, and then they become this compliant, complacent consumer who's really not in charge of their own destiny because they don't have the time to keep this in peak condition. And that's exactly what corporations want because the dumber you are, the easier it is to sell to you.
That's right. Yeah. And there's a reason why, there's a reason why in all the big box like Walmart stores, they have the very abrasive, heavy lights that are very toxic and make you think irrationally. So then you
Yeah,
purchase
right,
more stuff.
right. Yeah, and I mean, I'll tell you, like when you fix a man's light environment and you get him, like I was complaining to Jim the other day. I was like, man, I'm so like dialed in, and my numbers look so good, and HRV is great, and all that stuff. And I'm like, but man, at like 9 o'clock at night, I want to go to sleep. It's like so inconvenient. It's like it's like, man, I can get like another 2 hours of work done. But then I wake up to like a 95 sleep score and a 95 readiness score, and we
Mm,
have and an HRV of 60 or 70, and max HRV during the day of like 130. You
mhm.
know, and all in all, I feel great. I go to the gym, I work out well. Um, my body composition's good. I don't have any aches or pains. I don't have any headaches. I don't struggle with brain fog or fatigue or whatever, unless I really like work too many hours in a row. And yet my patients are coming in and like, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I have pain or whatever. Like they're in worse shape, even if they're younger than me. And
Mm.
so it's in the data. It's in the data, and it's really clear that the modern lifestyles are destroying people at a rate that's not compatible with our civilization maintaining its current structure and integrity. It's gonna crumble and then be reformed into something new and hopefully better.
Yeah, well said. Well said. It's people can either wake up and smell the coffee, so to speak, or they'll just keep going down a path towards self-destruction. But
It's the greatest opportunity though that people have
yeah, that's right.
probably in the last several generations to actually to have an impact on the world that's positive, and then to create actual, um, call it what you will, a legacy, wealth, whatever that means to you, because the world's at such a pivotal time where there's so much change that's going to happen.
Mhm.
If you jump in and you are part of it, you'll really have a powerful impact and really fulfill your desire to help people.
Yeah. Well said again. Well said. I think that's an important lasting message for people that like the best opportunity is now.
Yeah, right.
Like there will never be like a perfect opportunity, but there's a good one right now in the present for you to actually make some change because
Yep,
once it's gone, and you're not gonna
that's right.
there's never gonna be this perfect opportune, moment where you can, where it's easy. It's any obstacle worth overcoming is going to be challenging. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, the greatest chaos and seemingly insurmountable difficulty, that's where the real opportunity is.
100%. Where can people follow you and hear more about what
Yeah.
you have going on?
Yeah. My website is stillmanmd.com. My program for men, Optimal Male Vitality, is optimalmalevitality.com. My blog is stillmanmd.substack.com. So it's Substack. It's a Substack blog. And then my handle pretty much everywhere is stillmanmd, which makes it really simple. It's my last name and my credentials, medical doctor.
All right, fantastic. I think everyone, uh, please go give Dr. Leland a follow and get in touch with him if you're looking to optimize your health and just to take the next level up and really uh, to make that systemic change in your life. And just thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I really appreciate your time.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Likewise. Before you guys go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Taylor, the founder of Football Entangled, and we are revolutionizing the football world one player at a time. Hit the link down below if you are interested in unlocking class performance.